This is the spectacular story of Captain Julian Vance, a young man no one believed in, who shaped his own destiny defying impossible circumstances to forge the most feared crew the ocean had ever seen. The story so far: Captain Julian Vance won a dilapidated pirate ship in a card game and defied all odds and expectations, transforming its mutinous crew into a group of coordinated pirates. They survived sure death because of their captain. The chest of gold bought Captain Julian Vance the temporary loyalty of his crew, but he knew money could never buy true survival. The men fully expected him to buy better cannons, heavier armor, and sharper swords at the very next pirate port. Julian instead spent every single gold coin on stolen merchant schedules, heavily detailed naval maps, and the dusty logs of dead pirate captains. The crew was absolutely furious at this apparent waste of their massive newfound wealth. Julian revealed these old papers contained the exact secret shipping routes the Royal Navy thought were completely hidden. He realized his inexperienced crew would instantly die in a traditional sea battle against hardened veteran fighters. Therefore, he shocked his men by declaring they would simply never fight a fair battle ever again. Julian immediately instituted a brutal daily training routine. Grizzled sailors who expected to practice sword fighting were instead forced to sit below deck and practice picking heavy iron locks while entirely blindfolded. Julian had noticed his cook, Corin's accidental talent for mixing toxic spoiled ingredients, so he ordered him to train as a master chemist. Elara, a former debtor who owed her life to the crew, was given 2 brightly coloured flags and told to stand high on the main mast. She initially thought it was a cruel public punishment for her past mistakes on the open water. Julian taught her a complex system of semaphore to silently command the entire ship from afar. The crew of brawling rejects slowly transformed into a more disciplined unit of tactical masterminds. Soon a massive smuggler ship was spotted carrying rare silks along the rocky coast. Kalen prepared the men to board the enemy vessel at midnight. Julian overruled the order and asked them to drop their heavy weapons and quietly row ashore to the mainland instead. The crew thought their captain had decided to flee the dangerous ocean entirely. Julian led them straight to the towering coastal lighthouse that guided the rich smugglers safely through the deadly jagged reefs. They did not attack the heavily armed guards, but snuck around them and quietly sabotaged the oil reserves. This plunged the dangerous coastline into darkness. The smugglers out at sea panicked, completely blind and helpless in the dangerous shallow waters. Instead of leaving the enemy in the dark to sink, Julian ordered his men to quickly build a massive bonfire 3 miles down the empty beach. The anxious smuggler captain saw the new bright light and confidently steered his heavy ship toward what he assumed was the safe harbor entrance. He sailed directly onto a massive soft sandbar, grounding his ship with the cargo undamaged. The trapped smugglers cheered loudly when Julian and his men rowed out to meet them in small wooden boats. They foolishly believed locals had come to rescue them. Their happy cheers turned to stunned silence when Julian revealed his identity and ordered them to surrender their cargo. The pirates sailed away incredibly rich, leaving the uninjured smugglers deeply confused and entirely empty-handed. The stolen silk was quickly traded at a secret black market port, bringing in more gold than the crew had ever seen in their entire lives. Finn, the ship's young and sharp-witted quartermaster, was tasked with dividing the massive piles of treasure among the crew. The men expected Finn to take a massive cut for the captain, leaving them with tiny scraps of the actual profit. Finn was completely shocked when Julian ordered him to distribute the wealth entirely equally, refusing to take a single coin more than the lowest deckhand. This brilliant psychological move instantly erased any remaining doubts the crew had about their new leader's true intentions. With their loyalty fully secured, Julian knew it was time to abandon their rotting ship and steal a true fortress of the sea. Julian decided they desperately needed a new vessel, specifically targeting a heavily armored warship commanded by the notoriously brutal Captain Ironjaw Thorne. Thorne had a massive crew of 80 hardened killers and enough heavy cannons to completely sink a small island. Julian completely shocked them. by ordering Calin to tie him in heavy iron chains and row him directly to Thorne's warship. Calin was horrified and confused, believing he was being ordered to put the captain's life at stake. Julian calmly explained that the massive bounty on his own head was the perfect bait to get inside the enemy's floating fortress. Calin reluctantly delivered his chained captain to Thorne, collecting a heavy bag of bounty gold and rowing away in apparent disgrace. Thorne threw Julian into the darkest holding cell in the bottom of his ship, planning to publicly hang the young captain at dawn. The brutal pirate lord threw a massive loud party on his main deck to celebrate the incredibly easy capture of a rising rival. Thorne had absolutely no idea that Julian had spent the last 3 months forcing himself and his men to pick the locks on his shackles, even when blindfolded. He effortlessly slipped out of his heavy chains in less than 10 seconds, using a small metal pin hidden inside his collar. Julian waited patiently for Corin's special chemical Sleeping Draught to finally take its powerful effect on the enemy crew. Julian had not smuggled the potion in a bottle, but had intentionally soaked his leather boots in the powerful, tasteless liquid before being captured. When Thorne's guards had dragged Julian through to the ship's main deck, the liquid had dripped, releasing dangerous fumes. The celebrating pirates suddenly began collapsing one by one in the middle of their victory songs. They were completely unconscious before they even realized they were unusually tired. Thorne tried to angrily draw his heavy sword to find the hidden intruder, but his own legs gave out instantly. The fearsome pirate captain crashed heavily onto the wooden planks. Out on the dark ocean, Elara watched the enemy ship through a brass spyglass and saw the aggressive movement completely stop. She silently waved her coloured flags in the cold wind, signalling Calin and the rest of the crew to row quietly out of the shadows. They quickly climbed aboard Thorne's massive warship, careful of not breathing in the lingering dangerous fumes. They did not have to fire a single weapon or throw a single punch to conquer the heavily armoured vessel. Julian calmly walked up the stairs from the lower deck, having gently picked the lock of his own cell from the inside. Calin and the crew stared at the massive captured warship that now belongs to them and swore their eternal loyalty to the young mastermind. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next quest. A like and a subscribe will help us stay connected with you, also be a great source of encouragement for our team.